Hello everyone. We are now in week 5 of our course, and the topics for this week are project constraints, specifically talking about um, time management, cost management, risk management. The topics are pretty straightforward, so there isn't a whole lot of introduction or material that I need to introduce. There is readings, which I will talk about in a second, but essentially what you have on for this week is a few chapters from the book and two or three very short PowerPoint that show you some tools, and then a couple of templates that I will describe. Okay, let me go over the reading. First, we have chapters 6 to 9 of the book, and those chapters essentially are about managing time, and you'll get a good description of some of the tools, specifically Gantt charts and PERT charts. Then about challenging assumptions and adapting the project. As I think we've talked about before, as you work on your project, things happen, things that you did not anticipate, and that's because that's a reality of a project. It happens over time. Your plan is something you develop at the beginning, and as you begin to execute your project, things change. Things beyond your control or even things within your control. In other words, you learn more about your project, you can improve it, or you can find that, you overestimated or underestimated things. In other words, the assumptions you made need to be reviewed, revised, reformulated. And so chapter 7 talks a little bit about that. And again, we've talked about it before. And then the other two chapters are mostly about risk management, which again, risk management is about trying to anticipate what may happen and having contingency plans in place to address them. So that's the readings. I would like you to do them, and I think that will be helpful for you to understand some of those aspects. In terms of the additional material that had been posted for the course, two PowerPoint presentations about Gantt charts and PERT charts. These are the two most common tools used to manage time. I'm sure that most of you are quite familiar with Gantt charts, which are essentially the bar charts that we use to represent the project schedule. The PERT charts are a little more elaborate. The book describes a somewhat relatively simple form of PERT charts. What I have in the PowerPoint is a more elaborate form, and I have some comments on the PowerPoint itself when you look at it. Then a few additional material. There is a very short one-pager called Meaningful Milestones, which essentially gives you some guidelines as to what to define as a milestone. A milestone is not simply a date in a project. It's an achievement. So there's a deadline obviously associated with milestones, but there are other things that ought to be considered in defining a particular point in time as a milestone. So this short list of 7 or 8 criteria give you an idea of what to look for in a definition of a milestone. Then I have a risk assessment tool, which is a form that helps you specifically identify certain risks and give some more definition as to what that is. And then a risk matrix, which is a much simpler, more summarizing your risks. Essentially gives you a matrix on which you can plot the various risks, and it tells you which ones should receive most of your attention and ones, even though they may exist, are not worth a great deal of time. Couple more tools listed here. One is a status report form, which is again a tool you can use to kind of stay on top of your project. I mean, one of the most important things about managing a project and managing schedule for a project is to stay on top of things, to know what's happening so that if you are slipping, you'll know you are slipping. And so things like a status report form is a useful device to have that, again, helps you keep track of where you are. Use those forms and those tools if you find them useful. I mean, I'm just giving them to you not as something that are absolutely essential, but as something that can be helpful. And in fact, you can even adapt them to your own needs. In other words, take the form as I have posted it, which is essentially, or which are essentially templates, and then modify them to fit your need or to be more appropriate for your organization. Lastly, I have a very short, three slides PowerPoint deck called root cause analysis to help you essentially, when you have a problem, not to simply focus on the direct cause, which tends to be addressing on your symptom, but try to go beyond that and find the more important, the more foundational cause for the problem. In other words, the root cause. So it's a very simple tool. Any one of you who has young children use it, know it, because that's what young children do. When they ask you why something is, you give an answer, and then the next question is why, and you give an additional answer and they ask why again. And that's what they do. They're looking for the root cause of whatever it is that is bothering them. So, I give you a very simple example of how to go about it. Again, this is the kind of analysis that you might want to do when you have a problem that it manifests itself with a symptom, but you suspect there's something deeper behind it. And by doing this kind of root cause analysis, you can get into a better understanding of the risk associated with this particular situation. So that's the material. Again, I have some additional comments on the PERT chart. And then, as usual, I would post some discussion topics for the forum. Okay, thank you.